The Galactic Council had seen many species join their ranks over the past 10,000 years. They had welcomed beings of pure energy, creatures made of living crystal, and even species that existed partially in other dimensions. Their universal translator technology was considered perfect. It had been refined over countless generations until it could translate any language, any dialect, and any form of communication in the known universe. The translators worked on logic, pattern recognition, and emotional context. They never failed. Until they met the humans. Ambassador Al of the Empire remembered the first contact with Earth very clearly. The humans had seemed unremarkable at first. They were soft creatures with no natural weapons, no protective shells, and relatively short. They had almost classified them as a minor species, barely worth diplomatic attention. That assessment changed very quickly. The trouble began during the siege of Station. A fleet of raiders had attacked the joint research facility where humans and several other species worked together. The station's defenses were failing. Evacuation was impossible. The small security force of mixed species prepared to make their final stand against overwhelming numbers. Commander Sarah stood at the front of the defenders. She was a small human woman, barely reaching the chest of most other species present. The soldiers beside her expected her to give a tactical speech or perhaps offer some words of acceptance about their coming deaths. Instead, she did something that would be studied by military scholars for centuries. She began to sing. The words were old, from a conflict on Earth called World War I. The song was called "It's a Long Way to Tipperary." Her voice was not particularly beautiful, but there was something in it that the translators could not process. The devices clicked and whirred, trying to convert the song into something meaningful. They failed completely. Error, emotional context, EXCDS, Error, logical meaning not found. Error, purpose of vocalization unclear. The other human soldiers joined in. Their voices rose together in the narrow corridor of the station. The troops stood frozen, their translators flooding their minds with error messages. But something strange happened. Even without understanding the words, they felt something change inside them. Their fear began to fade. Their grip on their weapons tightened with new purpose. The raiders burst through the doors expecting to find broken, terrified defenders. Instead, they found a wall of soldiers singing together, weapons raised, eyes burning with something they had never seen before. The translators on both sides went absolutely mad. Commander stopped singing and let out a sound that would later be classified in galactic databases as a battle cry. It was not a word. It was not a sentence. It was a raw, primal scream that carried the weight of thousands of years of human warfare. The universal translators tried to process it and simply shut down from the overload. Though a species that had conquered dozens of worlds hesitated, that hesitation cost them everything. The defenders charged forward. The humans led the attack, screaming and shouting things that made no logical sense. "Remember the Alamo," one shouted. "For Sparta," yelled another. None of these phrases translated properly. The machines tried to explain that Alamo was a small building on Earth with no current strategic value. They attempted to note that Sparta was a dead civilization with no standing army. The context was completely lost. But the effect was not lost. The broken ran. News of the battle spread across the galaxy. Military analysts from 100 species studied the footage. They watched humans transform from calm, rational beings into screaming warriors in the span of seconds. They observed the complete failure of translation technology when faced with human battle cries. They could not understand it. High Commander of the Unified Galactic Fleet requested a meeting with human military leaders. He brought his finest translation experts and the most advanced linguistic computers available. He was determined to understand this strange human phenomenon. General greeted him on the human flagship Liberty. The general was an older man with gray hair and scars on his face from battles fought before first contact. He smiled warmly and shook his appendage in the human gesture of greeting. "I understand you want to know about our war songs," said. His translator hiccuped slightly on the word songs in this context, but functioned. "Yes, we have analyzed your vocalizations during combat. They serve no tactical purpose. They reveal your position to enemies. They consume energy and oxygen that could be used for fighting. They are completely illogical, yet they seem to make you more effective in battle. We do not understand." Nodded slowly. He had expected this question. "Let me show you something." He led to a large viewing room where human soldiers were gathered. They stood in neat rows, hundreds of them, all silent and waiting. Nodded to an officer and music began to play. It was an old song, something called Battle Hymn of the Republic. The soldiers began to sing together, their voices joining in perfect unity. Translator immediately began producing errors. The words were translating, but the meaning was not. The machines reported references to religious figures, to glory, to truth marching forward. None of it made tactical sense. But felt something. Despite his alien biology, despite his completely different evolution, he felt a chill run through his body. The sound was doing something to him on a level deeper than language. His heart beat faster. His muscles tensed. Some ancient part of his brain, the part that existed before logic, responded to the unified voices. "You feel it," said quietly, "don't you?" Could not deny it. "What is this?" "It is what makes us human," replied. "Your species evolved for efficiency. Most species in the galaxy did. They developed communication to transfer information as clearly as possible. They eliminated unnecessary noise. They became logical." He paused and looked at his soldiers, still singing with passion burning in their eyes. "Humans evolved differently. We were weak. We had no claws, no armor, no venom. We survived by working together, by forming tribes, by creating bonds that went beyond logic. Our songs, our battle cries, they are not about information. They are about connection. When we sing together before battle, we become one organism. Our fear becomes shared, and shared fear is smaller. Our courage becomes shared, and shared courage is greater." The song ended. The soldiers stood in silence, but something had changed in them. They stood taller. Their eyes were brighter. They were ready. His translator had recorded everything, but the analysis was useless. Emotional bonding ritual it suggested. Purpose, unclear. Tactical value, none. "Your machines will never understand," said. "They are designed to find meaning in words. But our battle cries have no meaning in words. They are meaning in themselves. When a human warrior screams, they are not communicating information. They are releasing thousands of years of genetic memory. Every battle our ancestors ever fought, every victory, every sacrifice, it all lives in that scream." Over the following years, the galaxy learned to respect and fear human battle sounds. The Horde attacked a human colony and was met with defenders singing something called "The Blood of Angry Men." The translators reported it as a song about liquid from upset males. The actual effect was a defensive force that refused to break despite suffering 80% casualties. They held until reinforcements arrived. The machine intelligence known as the Collective attempted to invade human space using pure logic and superior numbers. They calculated that humans would surrender when faced with impossible odds. They did not account for the battle cry. When human ships charged directly at the Collective fleet, screaming war chants over open communication channels, the artificial minds tried to process the incoming data. They concluded that the humans must have some hidden advantage, some secret weapon that made them confident. There was no other logical explanation for such behavior. There was no hidden weapon. There was only human spirit, expressed in ways that machines could never understand. The Collective retreated to analyze the situation. They never found a logical answer. Years later, they agreed to a peace treaty simply to avoid further confusion. Ambassador Al eventually wrote a report for the Galactic Council about human battle sounds. It became required reading for all species dealing with humans. The key passage was simple. Do not attempt to translate human war songs. Do not attempt to understand human battle cries. They are not meant to be understood. They are meant to be felt. When you hear humans singing before battle, know that you are facing something that your evolution never prepared you for. You are facing a species that has turned emotion into a weapon, unity into armor, and song into a force more powerful than any energy beam. The universal translators will give you errors. They will tell you that the sounds have no meaning. They are wrong. The sounds have more meaning than any words ever could. They are the voice of humanity itself, and that voice has never known defeat. Commander retired after the war. She lived quietly on a small colony world, tending a garden and teaching music to children. Sometimes, late at night, she would sit outside and sing the old songs. Her neighbors, a mix of humans and aliens, would gather to listen. They never fully understood the words, but they understood enough. They understood that as long as humans could sing, they could fight. And as long as they could fight, they would never be conquered. The translators could process every language in the galaxy, but they could not process the human soul. Perhaps that was the point. Some things were not meant to be translated. Some things were simply meant to be. The stars shone above Commander as her voice faded into the night. Somewhere in the galaxy, a young soldier was learning those same songs. The tradition continued. The spirit endured. And the universal translators kept producing the same error message they had produced since first contact. Human battle vocalization, deity satiety. Translation, impossible. Recommendation, seek cover. It was the most honest assessment the machines had ever made.